So we're gonna start the summer vlogs for July. I've spent the first couple of days in July finishing up A Letter to the Lonesome Shore by Sylvie Cathrall, which finished out the last vlog. And then last night on the 2nd, I did start The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. So it's currently the 3rd, so I will be continuing with this today and tomorrow, but we are heading out for the weekend. And so I'm gonna make this weekend adventure part of the Summerween vlog. So I'm just gonna do a quick intro, talk about my feelings so far about this. Hopefully I'll be able to finish in the next, between today and tomorrow, hopefully I'll be able to finish this, and then I'll be able to wrap up my thoughts when we get back and just kind of insert that. And then once Summerween is over, I can kind of continue on with other summer reads, but I want to make Summerween its own vlog. Anyway, so we'll just do that. So as I said, I did start Spanish Love Deception. I am 175 or so pages in, and I've been having a good time with this. We're following Lena and Aaron, and they work for an engineering company. They're co-workers. And Lena is going to be going to her sister's wedding in Spain, and she used to date the best man like some years ago, and he has since become engaged to someone else. And so he's bringing her to the wedding, his new fiance, and she just doesn't want the pitying glances from her family of everyone knowing what happened between them and her still being single after all this time. She just doesn't want to face any of that at the wedding. And so she tells her family that she has a boyfriend, recently has a boyfriend, and that she's going to be bringing him to the wedding. Problem is, she does not have a boyfriend, and she's been trying to date since she and this other person broke up, but like nothing's really clicked for her. And so, but she again just doesn't want to face this wedding and the stares from her family, and so she said that she has a boyfriend. That's where Aaron comes in. So he, although they do not get along, he kind of happens to be around when her mom is finally like, okay, well, what's his name? You haven't even mentioned his name. Like, what's your boyfriend's name? And he had previously offered to go with her. That's how the story opens, is him offering to go with her to this wedding. But she's like, absolutely not. I'm desperate, but I'm not that desperate. But he happens to be around when her mom asks what his name is, and so she kind of blurts out, it's Aaron. And, you know, just circumstances, like she really doesn't have anyone else that can do this, at least at the moment. And so ultimately she's like, okay, fine, you know, you go to the wedding with me. She agrees to go to an event, a charity event with him where he wants a date, for reasons. Anyway, so they kind of have this agreement going, and I don't know, it's just been fun so far. I'm entertained and having a good time with it so far. It is a little bit annoying that she has told him to call her Lena, and he still calls her by her full name. A little annoying. I'm like, dude, she told you to call her Lena. Call her Lena. But whatever. Anyway, so that is just like one little teeny tiny annoyance, but otherwise, you know, overall, I guess I should say, having a good time. And I do enjoy the dynamic with her and one of her coworkers who's a friend. And there's a really frustrating scene, and it's supposed to be frustrating, it's not, anyway, of her getting kind of handed something to do at work or given additional responsibility at work, essentially because she's a woman. And anyway, so that was frustrating. He didn't really say much to defend her at the time, but he has kind of helped her with that project. So I'm like, all right, well, at least you're helping her with the project. But anyway, but as I said, having a good time. So I'm gonna keep going with this today and tomorrow, and maybe I'll do a quick clip while we're away. If I'm able to finish it, maybe I'll do a quick clip while we're away just to kind of wrap it up. I do plan on bringing my camera in. We'll see if I end up vlogging, but I'll do a quick clip to wrap up thoughts, and then, as I said, just continue after Summerween. And yeah, anyway, all right. So here to catch up, check in with this vlog. I think last time, or the last clip, I was a solid chunk into the Spanish Love Deception and kind of talked about the basic setup and premise here. I was about halfway into this when Summerween started, so I paused. Summerween happened. The vlog for that should theoretically be up before this one, so it should already be on my channel. And so I was about halfway through this one when Summerween started, so I picked this one back up after Summerween ended, and I have since finished the Spanish Love Deception and had a really fun time with this one. I did enjoy our characters, again, kind of enjoy the setup. I always love a good wedding-centered romance. Those are always fun for me. And I will say some of the dialogue could be a little... Do I say cringe? It could be a little, I don't know. It felt like the author sometimes like had a long list of lines that she wanted to include somewhere that she felt should be included in a romance, and was trying to hit as many lines that could be included in a romance like between the two characters as possible. And sometimes it felt like they were saying more of those things to each other than talking about more in-depth or substantial things, or like getting to know each other a little bit more. Anyway, but again, overall had a really fun time with this one. I also wanted it to feel a little bit more like we were in Spain. So the cuisine was definitely there. You know, it was like northern Spain cuisine. That part was great. But, and I think this is more something to do with the setup than anything else, because since a lot of people are traveling for this wedding, they also included a lot of the bachelorette stuff, like, inclusive of like, within that weekend as well. Since everyone is coming together, that's kind of when they wanted to do some of that stuff. So most of it was just them hanging out with the family, you know, and the friends that were there for the wedding. And, you know, there wasn't much exploration or, you know, doing things out and about in Spain. So other than the cuisine, it didn't feel as much like we were in Spain as I kind of was hoping. But again, totally fine. I definitely would read more from Elena Armas. I don't know if it'll be the highest priority romance series that I continue, but I definitely would consider continuing with some of her other books that are, I think there's an interconnected set of romances. I think they're interconnected. Anyway, would definitely continue with more of her work. I then picked up Serpent Sea by Maya Ibrahim. So this is the follow-up to the sequel to Spice Road. And so I did brush up on what happened in Spice Road to continue on with this. I believe this will be a trilogy if what I'm seeing is correct when I was double checking. So this is the middle book, and it felt a little bit like a middle book, or at least so I'm about half-ish way through, and the first half has felt a bit slow, but there are some things that you can tell are cooking or on the horizon that I am excited for and excited to see what happens. So definitely not at all about to DNF this or anything. Like, I want to keep going with it. Just been a bit slower than I expected from what I recall of the Spice Road, I guess. And I'm not sure if that's just because it's a middle book and, you know, we're setting things up for where we want to go in the rest of the series, and, you know, I can kind of see where things are going, and, you know, things are in motion to get there. But again, yeah, it's just been a little bit slower. I'll talk a little bit about Spice Road. So we're following Imani, and her brother this is again the first book, Spice Road. So her brother in that one has gone missing, and they basically mourned him as though he were dead, but she is not necessarily convinced that he is dead. She is a shield, so in her, you know, where she lives, the shields basically protect their lands from these desert monsters, for lack of a better term, like these desert beings, basically anything that's a threat from the desert. The shields help protect this place from those threats. And she finds evidence that maybe her brother is alive and has been helping. Another thing about this kingdom is that they can have magic from these tea ceremonies, which is kind of cool. And so, this special tea, of course, is very carefully monitored. But they can get magic from the tea and doing that in a tea ceremony. And so it appears that her brother has been smuggling some of this to a neighboring kingdom, which is going to get him in a lot of trouble. It's very carefully protected, this spice, and they basically don't want any of it going outside of their kingdom. And so she is trying to figure out what's going on, trying to make sure her brother is still alive, see where he is. She reluctantly kind of partners with a Jinn to do this, because this Jinn claims to know her brother and know where he is, and wants to help her. And in exchange, our main character agrees to kind of bind this Jinn to her dagger or sword. And so they're going on, and there's a couple other people involved as well, and they're kind of going on this adventure to go figure out what happened to her brother, learn more about what's going on in the politics going on between some different kingdoms. Super fun. So having a good time with that. And yeah, so I'm going to be finishing that one, and I'll check in once I have more of Serpent Sea read. So I have finished Serpent Sea by Maya Ibrahim and had a really fun time with this one. The second half did really pick up quite a bit for a couple of reasons. One, the things that we're alluding to and preparing for in the first part of it, those things are actually happening in the second half. And so I was definitely interested in some of those things that we were building up towards. And I will also say that Taha and Imani are separated. I'm not going to go into detail and talk about why, because again, this is the second book in a series, but for plot reasons, they're separated for the first half of the story, and I was more interested in Imani's part of the story than I was Taha's. And anyway, they were both trying to accomplish different things, for reasons get separated, and so it was nice to see them come back together, see some of those plot elements weave together, and then get to some of the things that we were building up towards. So definitely had a fun time with this one. I think this will be a trilogy, so I'm looking forward to continuing and seeing what happens in the last one. I then have picked up Great Big Beautiful Life, or as Olivia would say, Great BBL, by Emily Henry. Actually, I think someone that Olivia was watching was referring to this as the Great BBL, and she just thought it was amusing, and I thought it was her finding it amusing was amusing to me, so I now think of this as the Great BBL. Anyway, but Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, I have started this. I'm in the ballpark of halfway through, and I'm really enjoying this one. And I can understand why this one is one of the more divisive Emily Henry's from the recent handful of years, and kind of her adult romance collection. I can see why this one is pretty divisive. It's definitely different than what she's done with her past books. It's definitely more literary, and so you just kind of need to know what you're getting into and set expectations so that you kind of know what to expect and, again, know what you're getting into. So we're following a couple of different things here. So we're following Alice, and we're following Hayden, and we're also following Margaret, or we're hearing Margaret's story. So Alice and Hayden are both writers. Alice lives in LA, works for a publication, hasn't really written as much of what she wants to write, and wants to write Margaret's story. Her family has been very interested in Margaret's career and life, and she just knows that Margaret has a very storied life, and her family has a very storied history, and she really wants to be able to tell Margaret's story. Margaret has kind of been a recluse for a long time, hasn't really told her story, and so she basically has tracked Margaret down to try to be able to tell her story. And we're also following Hayden. Hayden is a writer in New York, and he has actually written a biography before. So maybe to some looking in, he might be, or seem to be, the more obvious choice because he's written a very successful biography. And anyway, so he kind of has that as a backdrop in his career. And he is also, they're in a small Georgia town. I think it might even be a small island off the coast of Georgia. Anyway, they're in a small town in Georgia, and they both have now been in touch with Margaret to potentially be able to tell her story. They didn't realize that anyone else was there to potentially be able to tell her story. Alice just thought that she would need to convince Margaret to trust her enough to tell her story and kind of get it out of her and then start writing. But it turns out that someone else could potentially be there to tell Margaret's story. And Alice actually really did like the biography that Hayden wrote. And so she actually does have a tremendous amount of respect for him as a writer. And anyway, so they see that they're both there and kind of cross paths at Margaret's place when she's first meeting them and realize that they're in competition with each other. Margaret ultimately decides that she can't yet choose who she wants to tell her story, and so she's basically giving them a month trial, essentially. So she's paying them for their time, paying for their lodging to be able to stay for a month, start the process of interviewing her, researching, writing, whatever, and basically give them a month to give her something to go off of to kind of show who should tell her story and kind of help her make a decision from there. And so a good portion of this, and I think one of the reasons this is divisive, is that you need to like both parts of the story in order to fully enjoy this one, I think. So Margaret's story is a huge part of this. So if you don't find that part interesting, this could be a hard sell for you. I'm finding it interesting. I'm really enjoying the parts where we're getting to know Margaret. We're getting to know her family history. I'm enjoying that part as well. And so that's also been a draw for me. And then you also then separately have Alice and Hayden's dynamic. It's a very small town, again, so they keep running into each other, at the coffee shop, the bar, whatever. There are only so many places to go in this small town. And so they keep running into each other, and she doesn't necessarily want them to be hostile towards each other, just they're in the running for the same job. Whatever happens will happen, and there you go. And she is a very, very sunny person, very positive energy despite things that have happened to her. I love Alice. I love Alice so much. So she and Hayden keep running into each other. And she basically wears him down with her charm and just positive energy. He's definitely not that way towards her at first. Definitely standoffish, doesn't really want to get to know her, just sees her as the competition, just wants to focus on what he's doing, that kind of thing. But she kind of wears him down. And he starts to really enjoy her company and enjoy her personality and just enjoy just the light that she brings. And anyway, so I'm really loving their dynamic. But of course it's complicated. They both live separate lives on opposite sides of the country. They're competing for a job. Anyway, so it's complicated, but I'm really enjoying their dynamic. I love their banter, and Lee Henry, I feel like, is really great at banter, kind of building that dynamic between the characters, and so I'm having a really great time with this one. Again, I can see that it's different from a lot of what she's done before, and so if you're expecting this to be a romance, for a lot of her other ones, as long as you like the romance, then it's a pretty easy sell, right? But even if it's kind of a different setup or they're whatever. So, but for this one, Margaret's part of it is half the story, and so anyway, I'm finding it intriguing, and I'm intrigued to see how Margaret's story might tie into a larger picture, and what she ultimately decides she wants to do. Anyway, so I'm intrigued by all parts of the story. So I'm going to keep reading this one and getting a few things done around the house. And I really should apply for some more jobs too. So I'm going to go do those things while I listen to the next half of The Great BBL. And yeah, and check back in later. So we really need to check in. Okay. So I have finished Great BBL by Emily Henry and really enjoyed this one. I was interested in both storylines and how they weave together. Definitely an emotional one, and I don't know, I really enjoyed it. And she definitely took a risk doing something like this, which I respect. And I don't know, I still enjoy it. There's just something about her writing that just gets me. And Julia Whalen's narration, to be fair, because she's incredible. I then started and finished Drown Me with Dreams. This is by Gabby Burton. This is the second book after Sing Me to Sleep, and follows Saoirse, who is a siren. And in this world, sirens, she is seemingly the last siren left, and she is kind of passing off as a water fae to hide the fact that she's a siren, because she would be targeted if people knew she was a siren. And there's kind of this barrier that is keeping the kingdom where she lives kind of closed off to protect them. And she, as a siren, does get the urge to kill and has been working for someone to do that. And there are investigations going on. She ends up accepting an assignment as a guard to the prince so that she can figure out who's blackmailing her sister. And they're investigating some murders that the palace is investigating some murders that she committed. And anyway, so she gets tangled up in that and the resistance, and she's trying to figure out what's going on, like what is outside of the kingdom, and should this barrier come down, what's going on there. So she's dealing with a bunch of politics. And anyway, it's just a super fun series. I really like the writing in this one, and it's just fun. It's just a lot of fun with some fun characters. I had a good time with this duology for sure. Definitely a perfect summer fantasy duology with sirens and everything going on. It was fun. I then am continuing the American Royal series. This is the third one in the American Royal series, so I won't say what's going on about this one. But essentially this series follows what would happen if Washington, it's an alternate history set in present day, but what would happen if Washington accepted a monarchy instead of a presidency. And so America has a royal family, the Washingtons, and you're following the heir. And then, she has two younger twin siblings, a sister and a brother. And so you're following their family and some people connected to their family as they navigate royal life or being adjacent to royal life. And it's just, it's a ton of fun. And again, I can't say too much about what's going on in this one, but yeah, you're following all of the siblings, and then you're also following various people that they either are friends with or date, and people are either scheming to try to get closer to the royal family to put their family in a better position, or have kind of by circumstances become close to the family, but they really don't want to be in the spotlight. And there are dukedoms and titles and stuff, but the heir also needs to work with, there's interactions with the actual U.S. political system with Congress. And so, it's kind of an imagining of what would happen if, the royal family needed to kind of interact with the political, like our political system, and what would that look like. Anyway, it's just super interesting, super fun. I really love the characters and just the scheming that happens in this series. So I'm enjoying the third one. Yeah, so I'm probably not going to say too much more about it, but honestly, if that sounds like a good time, would recommend this series. Yeah, so that's it for the moment. And then I just have a few left, and I'm hoping to get them done. Actually, I also need to read the nonfiction because my environmental book club meets next Thursday. So yeah, so basically 4 books left to read, and I'm trying to get them done relatively quickly and just kind of get to some more summer reads as well that I'm also just as excited about. Anyway, so yeah, as I said, probably won't say much more about this, but we'll check in once I'm done and probably started another book. So I have finished the 3rd book in the American Royal series, really enjoyed it, and that ending, I'm excited to see where the 4th one goes. I'm going to read it really soon. I'm so intrigued. Also, don't mind this. Had a mole removed earlier today. Anyway, so this is just going to grace us for a little while that heals. And I have since picked up the Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner. I've loved both books that Sarah Penner has written so far. They're just vibey and atmospheric, and I figured this one would be perfect for summer. All of her books involve magic and usually witches or, again, some sort of magic. This involves water magic, water witches, essentially. And so we're following a couple of different timelines. I'm really enjoying this one so far. We're following a couple of timelines. We're following a timeline in the 1800s, following this group of women, and we're off the Italian coast. We're in the Amalfi area, the area of the Amalfi Coast off of Italy, or along the coast of Italy. So very, again, coastal water is a huge part of this. And so timeline in the 1800s follows Mari, who is part of this community of witches who can help control things to do with the water. And they are able to use this to protect their community from things like pirates who are coming by, people who are coming by via the sea who might not be good people or engage in ethical business practices, etc. And so they kind of use their powers to help protect their community and make sure that the water is not really optimal for those ships to come into their area. And so they've kind of been protected from a lot of what's been happening up and down the Amalfi Coast. And so a couple of men and their crew have come in via land to investigate what's going on and why this area is for some reason so protected. And they don't really have good intentions, we'll say, with the people there. And so the women are trying to protect their community from these men and what they're doing. So we've got that timeline going on. We also follow a present day timeline with Haven, and she's someone who has a lot of experience diving. So she's essentially an underwater archaeologist, or she helps. Her father was also an underwater archaeologist, essentially. So she has been diving with him since she was very, very little. And they both essentially do dives to investigate, or excavate, old ships and stuff, or places that might have these different treasures or artifacts. It sounds so cool. And it's been really interesting to hear about her work and the research and preparation that's gone into, the area that they're in along the Amalfi Coast. And so that's been super interesting. Her father was also in this line of work, and so she basically learned everything from him and his coworkers. And just before he died, there was an area off the Amalfi Coast that he was particularly interested in and had done at least one dive in and thought there was more to see, but he passed away and wasn't able to go back there. And so she is part of a research team, and they are there for a specific research project, and she kind of also wants to be looking for, pick up where her father left off, basically in that area, and look for what he was trying to find. And so she kind of has an ulterior motive a little bit with the research in that specific area. But yeah, following her research and weird things in the present day timeline with this research area, weird things are starting to happen. There was a yacht that basically sank with no apparent cause, and some people died in that incident. And just there's readings in terms of volcanic activity that maybe are concerning some people, and anyway, so some things are happening, and the more and more she digs into this, and the more and more she's getting into her research and diving, she is finding out more about this Amalfi Curse that might be, I'm guessing, linked to these women who were there in the 1800s and whatever happened in their timeline. Her books usually follow, if not a couple of different timelines, at least multiple characters that are kind of interconnected, but usually stories that are kind of interconnected across time. And I love the way that she kind of links those together, that tell two individual interesting stories, but also weaves them together in such an interesting way. So I'm really anticipating that that's what she's doing here. So I trust her to do this kind of setup. This is what at least has been successful for me from this author before with both of her other releases. So I'm having a grand time, both with the 1800s timeline as well as the present day timeline. I will say there's a bit of a romantic component in the present day with Haven and someone who's taking her out for these dives that I'm like whatever on. She doesn't spend much time on it, and a lot of what they would do to kind of build their relationship happens, doesn't happen on page. And so, did that need to be included? Not really, but whatever, it's fine. But again, having a really good time with both of these timelines and very intrigued to see how they intersect. So I'll continue going with this one, and I think I'm gonna do Ali Hazelwood's book next, Problematic Summer Romance, because that also takes place in Italy, and I feel like it'd be a fun one after this one just to have two books that are super vibey with the Italian setting. I think that would be fun. So I think that's going to be my next one, but I'm going to keep going with this one. It's pretty short too, so I don't think it'll take me too long to finish this one and start the Ali Hazelwood books. So I have finished The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner. Had a lot of fun with this one. I loved both timelines, and I loved how they weaved together, and anyway, I had a lot of fun with this one. And yeah, perfect summer vibes, just witchy, atmospheric, but definitely very summer water vibes. But yeah, I loved following Mari and her story and her trying to protect her community while hoping to be able to follow her heart and take control over her life. And I also loved the timeline with Haven. Again, the romance in that one, kind of whatever, could take or leave. But, had fun with the dynamic there, had fun with how her work was tying into and how her family history was tying into what was going on, and, the people she met, how that came into her research and what was going on, and just her trying to figure out how all of this was interconnected. Anyway, I just had a lot of fun with this one. And I'm continuing the Italian summer vibes with Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. So I love me and Ali Hazelwood. And in this one, we're following Maya. So Maya is Eli's brother, and we're also following Connor. And they had met some years before and kind of had a bit of a thing. There's a huge age gap between the two of them. It's like 15 years. It's quite a bit. And they had been really close, and then he started dating someone else, basically stopped talking to her. They're coming back together for her brother's wedding because he's the best man, or one of the groomsmen at the wedding, and she's of course there as well with her, with her brother, and their whole gang, their whole group. And so she's trying to navigate this. They're in Italy and in Sicily specifically, and trying to navigate this, trying to have a good time at, around the wedding and leading up to the wedding. They're there about a week before the wedding, trying to figure things out while being around Connor again. And so we're mostly in the present day with this wedding, but it also does flashback to however many years before when they met and kind of their connection then. I don't know, I love me and Natalie Hazelwood. I always have a good time and just laugh and find them really funny. And so I'm having a good time with this one. Definitely love the Italian summer vibes in this one as well. It is definitely very heavily focused on him in particular being worried about this age gap and whether or not that is okay at that point, or anyway, there's a lot of focus on that, which I understand can probably annoy some people, the degree to which he is thinking about it. But anyway, I'm having a good time. I'm having a good time with the characters. She's really funny. And I don't know, I'm just liking their dynamic, having a good time. So I'm going to keep going with this one, hoping to finish this today so that I can read Under a White Sky by the meetup tomorrow. It should be fine. It's pretty short, so I'm not worried about it. But yeah, I will continue reading this one. So here to wrap up this vlog, this is the last couple of things I was able to read in the month of July. So I'm gonna talk about those really quick and end this vlog and try to get this up soon, and then just start a new vlog for the month of August. It's middle of August right now. We're back from our trip. But I thought I brought my camera with good intentions. I did film a little bit of our trip, which I'll show in the next vlog. But anyway, I had good intentions of keeping up with filming. Did not happen. But I was mentioning, I think in the last clip, that I was going to read The Jessad Heir by the end of the month. Was in fact able to finish this one, and I absolutely love this one. I actually got the second one when we were on our trip, and I'm hoping to finish this duology very soon. And in this one we're following Sylvia and Aaron, and Sylvia is the Jessad heir, and Nizal has actually taken over and did so when she was actually pretty young. She was believed to be dead in that incident, but she actually was able to escape and is just living life as a new person under the radar as a commoner, and has been trying to just keep her head down. Jessad, the people of Jessad have magic, which is part of what's being targeted here, and she also has magic. And at one point, the Nizal prince is in her small town looking for, he's actually kind of going around a bunch of different places looking for the person who's going to be Nizal's champion in this set of trials that are coming up. And so for reasons, he's going around and they run into each other. There's been some unrest. Someone has very publicly died. She actually gives him kind of the Jessad death rights and is saying the Jessad death rights when he comes across her. And she's just saying, well, I know he's from Jessad. I just thought he would want that. And I learned these death rights in this special school, whatever. Anyway, so she's coming up with excuses, but he now has his eye on her. And at one point in kind of the ensuing couple of days, she's trying to protect someone and accidentally reveals her magic. And so there are some Jessadi rebel groups who are both violent and looking for her, and he wants her help tracking down these rebels. And so for reasons, he wants her, and he's basically revealing your magic is kind of a death sentence. So says that he'll spare her if she is willing to basically help him track down these rebel groups. And the way he wants to do this basically is kind of have her be Nizal's champion in the set of trials, and then they'll come to her, and hopefully he'll be able to capture them that way. Anyway, so this was so much fun though. And then of course, as they're together, as she's Nizal's champion in these set of trials, they spend a lot of time together. She needs to train. And so, you know, they start becoming friends and or at least start to trust each other a bit in this process, but she still can't reveal who she actually is. And anyway, so I love the tension between them. That was great. I love the set of trials and kind of the preparation for this trials. I always love a set of trials in a story. Always so much fun. So that was definitely a really fun element here. And this was just so much fun. The world building, the characters, the tension, again, these trials, so much fun. And so, as I said, I'm definitely looking forward to reading the second one. So I'll probably have that maybe even in August is what I'm hoping in the next vlog. I also read The Glittering Edge. This is by Alyssa Valere. And this one was a lot of fun. This is basically, and this is kind of the way Olivia spoke about it, and I think it's very accurate. It's basically like a CW show, and it was so much fun. And it's set in the summer, so I actually hadn't realized it was set in the summer. And so she actually recommended reading it in the summer, which was a perfect recommendation. And so I decided to kind of slip this in there in my summer TBR. And in this, you're following a couple of people who, well, you're following 3 different characters, but 2 of them are from these 2 different families. And it's believed that one of the families, kind of a couple of generations ago, cursed the other one. And so anyone who falls in love with someone from this other family ends up dying. And so there's a long history of weird happenings and accidents and things with people who fall in love with people from this family who have been cursed. And our third character, kind of our main female character, Penny, gets caught up in this when her mom falls in love with someone from this family who has been cursed. And of course, something happens to her mom, and so she needs to figure out how to undo this curse before it actually claims her mother's life. And so there's definitely tension between these families based on this long history, and so she essentially has to get these families, or at least the youngest, like the people around her age, who go to her high school, she needs to get them to kind of work together and figure out what's going on with this curse, how to break it. And it was just so much fun. It was a delight. I honestly had a grand time with this one. It was fun to follow the magic and the history of these families. It's definitely a very contemporary setting, as I said. It kind of feels like a CW show, and it was a delight. So that was everything I was able to finish in July. So we're just gonna wrap it up here and say thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more bookish content, and I will start a vlog for August, and we took a little side trip. We mostly were just hanging out with Matt's family. And so and he was also teleworking for a good chunk of the time we were there. So mostly it was just us hanging out, and I was applying for jobs. So like most of it didn't involve anything exciting, but we did take a little side trip to Boston. And so I'll have clips of that in the next vlog and talk about what I was able to read while I was there, and then kind of catch you up on August. But we'll leave that here for now, and I'll leave my Instagram link down below, as well as more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.